Well, good evening, everybody. Today is Wednesday, August 22nd, 2019, 5:52 p.m. Driving home from Tampa, just getting on I-275 off of Del Mabry, just got off of work. I'm actually getting off at a human hour today because I have to be somewhere. I'm going to church, so that's probably the only reason I'm getting off at a human hour, because I still have a lot of work to do at work. I'll put it that way. I might jump back online for work when I get home from church about 9 o'clock tonight. So we'll see. Hopefully. See, it depends upon how much energy I have. I'm late with the project, so I really need to. But sometimes I find that if I can get online at 9 o'clock and work for 3 hours, the best option instead of doing that is going to bed early and then getting to work at 6 instead of 9. So I have my 3 hours, same 3 hours, but they're sharper, more productive 3 hours. So I don't know. It's always a tough call because it's just a tough call. I never know what to do. But anyway, I want to talk about the sedating. That's sedating, sedating, it's like sedation. The sedating of the population, the sedating of not just the population, but I mean, it occurs in small scales too, right? Like in families or in basically any type of organization. It's interesting how the Pareto principle comes into play with respect to this. If you don't know what the Pareto principle is, it's Pareto, like P-A-R-E-D-O, Pareto's principle. And the Pareto's principle, you've probably heard it as expressed as the 80-20 rule. And that is 20% of the people do 80% of the work, 20% of the people make 80% of the money, 20% of the people give you 80% of the problems, 20% of the people, it's just the 20-80 thing. And it's just a general guideline. In some cases, it's probably 70-30. In other cases, it's probably 95-5. But just as a general guideline, it's known as the 80-20 rule. So people talk about how it's so hard but it's impossible to have conspiracies where hundreds of thousands of people are supposedly presumed to be in on the conspiracy. For me, in my mind, I think that's what the Pareto's principle is how do you say, most dramatically applied, I guess you might say. Because if you think about it, 80% of the population we don't, 80% of the population doesn't think for ourselves. We don't think for ourselves. You might say, well, you're saying that people are stupid. No, I'm not saying that people are stupid. I'm just saying, I do what I do, and I don't have time to learn the intricacies of everything that everybody else does. So I rely on their expertise, right, to advise me about that particular issue. So it has nothing to do with being dumb or with being lazy. It's just a practical reality of the situation. I don't know anything about it. I know very little about, plumbing. So I rely on professionals to do the work, and I'm basically at their mercy. If they want to come to my house and charge me $400, I really don't have that much. I mean, what can I say about it? I'm kind of helpless, right? I could call another guy, get a second opinion, but I mean, then that's extra time and effort and energy on my part, and that's the entire point of this, is that I don't have time and energy to deal with this. So I might just pay the guy $400 and not really know whether or not it's a good deal. I think I don't know if you saw my video about the way that I've learned to take care of my own teeth, such that I don't ever need to go to the dentist anymore. But point is that for the first 45 years of my life, I had no clue. I mean, I was just clueless, And again, that's not a sign that I'm stupid, because 99.5% of the people are clueless until the day they die about this particular subject, right? So again, just to emphasize and reemphasize this idea that 80% of the population are clueless about any given subject, obviously nobody is clueless about everything, and nobody is clued in to everything, right? I mean, that's an inevitability, right? So it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of the population is clueless as a matter of necessity, as a matter of practical necessity, as a matter of practical reality. It's just the way it is. Now there's the rare exception, the 1/10 of 1% of the population that just knows a lot about pretty much everything, or a lot about an enormous number of subjects. But I mean, that's a rarity, right? It's a very rare occasion. So it's Pareto's principle, and this is how a huge population is engaged, or is victim, I guess you might say, to widespread conspiracies. Whether you believe these conspiracies or not, I'm not suggesting in this particular video that you need to, or that you should, or whatever. But I'm just saying, like, people can't understand flat Earth. How could so many people be fooled? You know, or the Gulf of Tonkin incident in Vietnam that started the Vietnam War. Everybody believes that that's true. Well, some people say no, that it was a completely manufactured event. It was manufactured simply to cause the war, just to start the war. A bunch of guys sitting around in a room saying, we want to have a war. We need a reason to start a war. What can we do to either, do something artificially that will be a real event, but it won't be organically caused. It'll be caused by us, basically. Or what can we do just to invent an event out of thin air that isn't even a real event, but everybody thinks it's real. So, and then there's all these things, right? The Gulf of Tonkin, the flat Earth, the vaccines, the global warming, the Russian interference in the election. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on. And there are conspiracies across the entire political spectrum. It's not left-right thing. Everybody has their conspiracies, But again, it's the Pareto's principle. 80% of the population is clueless, but that's not the end of it. Because if that was the end of it, then you'd still be looking at a huge number of people who are involved in a conspiracy or a lie. Yeah, basically a conspiracy, because that's what a widespread lie is. It's a conspiracy. So what you end up with is like a pyramid, right? So the general population is at the bottom. And that's 80% of them are clueless, 20% are clueless. But point being is that you can break down every category into the 80-20 rule. So even the 20% that are clued in, 80% of those are in their own category of cluelessness with respect to the upper 20%, and so on and so forth. So when you go on up the level, up the pyramid, it's really hard to deal with this in the abstract. So let's attach something concrete to it, not to make an argument that this particular concrete thing is true or false. That's not the point. The point is, it's just to attach something concrete to an abstract idea. So let's just, for the sake of argument, say that the fluoride conspiracy is actually true. And it just so happens that within the past week, one of the most respected medical publications has come out and said that yes, fluoride is a neurotoxin. Fluoride does reduce IQ, and therefore fluoride should be, either eliminated or dramatically reduced in terms of use. All the kids, they have fluoride enhanced water for babies. They have children's toothpaste with fluoride, and if you read the side of the bottle, it says contact poison control of the child. Not poison. Is it poison control? Yeah, I think it's poison control. If the child swallows the toothpaste, contact poison control. But the toothpaste tastes like bubble gum or raspberries or whatever. I mean, so obviously the kids are going to be swallowing it. So because they make it taste good. So just for the sake of argument, just hypothetically, theoretically, let's just say that this is true. How is it that millions and millions and millions of people bought into the lie that it's safe and that it supposedly does something good for your teeth when it doesn't even do but it causes brain damage, low scale brain damage, which maybe on an individual isn't really notable, but when spread across an entire population, you got the law of the aggregate as opposed to the law of the individual, or the laws that, the statistical law, the way that statistics impact and govern individuals. It's different than the way they impact and govern populations. So. So let's just say, for the sake of hypothetically, that is true. So 80% of the population is clueless. They don't even know that the conspiracy exists. They don't even know, and as a consequence, when they hear about it, they just laugh. I call it the giggle treatment, which is itself a conspiracy. The fact that people are trained to just giggle when they hear something that they've never heard before, as a way of dismissing it, as a sort of psychological trick of oppression and intimidation to silence people. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, so they're trained to give people the giggle treatment when they hear something they never heard before, or when they hear something that the establishment has never presented to them as being credible, or on the one hand, or on the other hand, something that the establishment has explicitly presented to them as being not credible, right? And they've trained them to giggle when they hear something that they have been told is not credible, right? So I call it the giggle treatment, right? So again, let's just say that this floor I think is true. So the 80-20 rule: 80% of the population is clueless, 20% of the people are clued into it. Out of those 20%, 80% might not take it seriously, 20% take it seriously, and just so on and so forth. But then you go up the next level. It's like, well, it's not possible that out of a population of 300 million people, say 150 million adults, that 20% of that would be what? 10% would be 15 million, so 20% would be 30 million. It's just not possible that 30 million people would operate in unison to deceive the other 120 million adults. And I would agree with that. That's true. I mean, it's impossible to keep a lie across any number of, it's almost impossible for even one person, but, a small group of people, it's almost impossible, right? So what happens, I believe, is that you go up the chain of command in the pyramid. The 80-20 rule just keeps applying until you get to the very top of the pyramid, and the 20% of the people at the top is a very small number of people, and those are the only people that actually know what's going on. The rest of the people in the pyramid, whether it's the educators or the industry leaders or the government officials, or and then at the top would be sort of like the what they call the deep state, or the shadow government. The deep state / shadow government, it sounds very mysterious. It's not really mysterious. All it is the bureaucracy, right, that stays in power from administration to administration to administration. They don't really care who's president. When you've got a federal government workforce of several 100,000 people, a guy comes in for 4 years. I mean, is he even ever going to get around to addressing your department or your agency? I mean, probably not, right? Especially if he's kept busy, right? If the shadow, let's just say, for example, that in this case, the agency in question is a shadowy type of an agency. Some are very functional and very practical and very, just say, honest and honorable. Some are like very shadowy and very like, what the heck do they even do? And in fact, they're up to no good. But so let's just say that in this case, that the agency in question is one of those shadowy agencies that's up to no good. Nobody knows what they do. Nobody really even knows that they exist. And because they're shadowy and indistinct, nobody really cares to know, because it's just an awkward kind of situation. Nobody really knows what to say when the subject of your agency comes up, right? I mean, that's the way it is. Everybody wants to be polite. So the sort of biblical mandate to purge the evil from among you is just swept under the rug, and the evil is just ignored, and eventually it metastasizes, and it just becomes this big, huge problem, and everybody's just like, what the heck is going on? Everybody sort of, I was going to say that everybody knows, but the thing of it is it's like practical denial, right? When your career, when your reputation for being a nice person, when your popularity at all the champagne circuits, the champagne party circuits, and when all of that is threatened by the possibility of you bringing up something that's awkward and uncomfortable and will cause you to be a lightning rod for angst and vitriol and retribution and revenge and all that, 98% of the population is just going to say, I'm not even, since me talking about that's going to make me a lightning rod, I'm not even going to talk about that, right? So that's what people do. I mean, they don't want to lose their house. They don't want to lose their car. They don't want to lose their endowments. They don't want to lose their retirement accounts, their investment accounts. They don't want to think about the possibility of having to take their children out of their elite universities or whatever, So they don't even want to think about that. It's too much. It's too much for the human mind to consider. So they just avoid the difficult subjects. And so that's like entrenched, metastasized evil, right? And that's how it becomes entrenched and metastasized, is by threatening the peaceable, law-abiding people with discomfort. Not even like mortal injury or not anything, nothing dramatic. Nothing dramatic at all. It's just they just threaten the peace, basically, of peaceful, law-abiding people. And it's never overt threats. It's just kind of like a subconscious knowing that if I go up against this person or this agency or this issue, it's going to be trouble for me. And like I said, 98% of the people will just throw their hands up and they say, well, obviously that's not anything I want to deal with because I want to have a good life, Obviously, that's not the path that Jesus chose. So there's another biblical sort of model that's, testimony, I guess you might say, that's being violated when people do this. And so you sort of they're sort of trading gold for fool's gold, right? Fool's gold is the peace that they have in this life, the circuit, the party circuits that are defended, that are, kept safe, the relationships, the notoriety, the public, the community notoriety, the yada yada, yuckity yuck, so on and so forth. That's the fool's gold. The real gold is the stuff that, like I mentioned in another video, that Isaiah, Jeremiah, Jesus, and every single one of his followers, including obviously the Apostle Paul, they all embraced the real gold, which is faithfulness to the kingdom of God, which is not the abandonment of all of those other things, because there's nothing wrong in and of themselves of any of those things. But it's when you start to sacrifice your allegiance and your loyalty to the kingdom of God in order to protect those things and to keep those things, like, Gollum and his precious, right? My precious. So you become kind of a clone. You become kind of like a remote control clone of the kingdom of Satan, so to speak, the kingdom of the devil. Even though you're not in the darkness, you're complicit with the darkness, even if it's only a little bit, because you're compromising your allegiance and your loyalty to the kingdom of heaven by refusing to take a stand against evil, because if you take a stand against evil, it's going to threaten your creature comforts and your yuckity yuck, whatever, all that, all the stuff that people that we're all very familiar with, that people worship. We all worship it to some degree at some point in time or another, and we are all constantly tempted to worship it all the time. And you could live a life almost. You could do 100 things you can disavow your allegiance to these things 100 times, and yet on the 101st time, you could, have an error in judgment or whatever you call it. Just the right circumstances, the right amount, the right profile of things are presented to you as temptation for you to disavow the real gold. And like I said, you can do it right 100 times, 101st time, you fall. So it's not like an us and them type of a proposition, like those people and us. It's all of us. We all sort of suffer the same temptation and ailment. It's just really kind of an issue, I guess you might say, when somebody habitually gives themselves over to it until they actually become like one with the world, with the status, the titles, the money, the privilege, the notoriety, the community respect. It's a tragic thing to have the respect of the community and the condemnation of God. I mean, that's an absolute tragedy. And the community works overtime. I mean, and that's like an understatement. This is maybe the biggest understatement we can make. The community works overtime to convince us all that its respect is one and the same as God's respect, right? Yeah. But anyway, point is, I want to try to get back to the basic point, because I'm almost to my destination. And I'm picking somebody up, so I'm going to have to go. Otherwise, I would just keep talking. So the idea is that you just go up the line and 80-20, 80-20, 80-20. You start out with 150 million people. You got 30 million people. You move up to the next level, which let's just say the next level is the educators, the institutionalized education. Let's just say, for example, maybe, 3 million people work in institutionalized education, right? I have no idea what the number is, but I'm just going to say 3 million. So 20% of 3 million is 20% of 3 million, 10% is 300,000. So that's 600,000. So you can see how dramatically the numbers go down the further up the pyramid you go. So you go from 20% of 100, well, first of all, you go from 300 million, cut that in half to 150 million adults. The kids go along with adults, and there is a principle there with the fact that the kids go along with the adult. There's a principle there. Hopefully I have time to come back to that. But the 150 million adults, 20% of that is 30 million. But at the next level, 20% of the 3 million people that theoretically work in institutionalized education, that's 600,000. So we go from 30 million, right, to, if I'm doing this right, 20% of 3 million, 10%, 6 million. Okay, so we go from 6 million to 600,000, right? Okay. I'm going to have to, 3 million is right. Okay, 3 million, 20% of 3 million. 20% of 150 million is, it's 30 million. 20% of 150 million is 3 million. 150 million. 30 million. Sorry. 20% of 150 million is 30 million. Wow. Okay. Numbers are, okay. So 30 million, and then we go up to 3 million. 20% of 3 million is going to be, 20% of, 3 million is going to be 600,000. So we go from 30 million to 600,000. Now the next level is industry, the industry leaders. Now it's not all of industry. That's the thing. That's where it gets crazy. It's just the industry that deals with this issue of fluoride being present and placed in consumer ingestible or topical products. Because that's the other thing they don't tell you. Topical is just the same as ingested. Not exactly the same, but it's not benign. The skin is an organ. The skin absorbs whatever you put on it, right? So, what's that? What number is that? I mean, that's got to be like a tiny number, right? Like 100,000, 80,000, 30,000. I don't know, it's a very small number. Let's just say, and here I'm at my destination now. Anyway, the gist of it is, 80-20 all the way up the line. And pretty soon you're talking about a room with six people, and they're the ones that control, the entire pyramid, and they're the ones making all the decisions. So that's it. God bless you. Thank you for listening. Pareto's principle, widespread conspiracies. Thank you. Bye.